One of the good parts about life is learning from your mistakes. Hi, dog. One of the better things about life is learning from other idiots making those mistakes for you. But today I'm the idiot. So this is how you ruin a $1,600 headphone in 1 second with one finger. Dude, I'm so excited. Okay. I've been working on this project for a long time. Today, I'm going to be heavily modifying one of my favorite headphones, which is this, the Hyphen Arya. I've done a bit of work to already take it apart and everything. That part's just standard disassembly, but I want to talk about everything that I'm going to be putting on it because I'm pretty excited. I do have one component to this, which I am considering doing a follow-up video for, which are going to be these epoxy grills right here. Okay, so let's talk about everything. So the main chassis, which is if you saw on Twitter, which I've begun using again, unfortunately, is called the Arya. The drivers for these are neatly and carefully placed within this box, and I will show you those. So here is one, and here is the other, and make sure you don't have any metal on here if you are going to do this yourself. Here's all the screws for the Arya, and I think that's basically it. So these are what the drivers look like. They look pretty wild, kind of transparent, opaque. They have this membrane that goes through the whole piece that gets clamped on there. This is, with the thinner magnets, is going to be the ear side, and this is going to be the outer side, and I need to be careful not to move this foam too much. Okay, so one of the other components to the build is going to be cables and pads. I'll talk about cables later. But let's talk about pads. Duconi was very nice in sending me all 4 of their Arya pads. I don't know if you noticed this, but on the boxes themselves, they actually sort of tell you what they are. Not necessarily on the label, but just the box. For example, this one has the perforated top and the flat top, which is a hybrid because it's a combination of both. So this has perforations on the inside and sheepskin on the outside. Then you have the velour, which is just this darker blue, which is just velour. These, I think, are the pads that we're going to be using for this build, but I'm going to try all of them, of course. Then you have the sheepskin, which are just solid sheepskin. And then you have the fully fenestrated pads here. Foam on this is just incredible. They all, of course, come with the mounting hardware to get on there. This is definitely a nice upgrade over the stock pads, but we're going to see which one sounds best. I don't really have a headphone with a super warm sound signature these days, so I'm really kind of trying to make it a warm sound signature, warmer than it is already, and I think the velour is probably going to get the closest to that. All right, so we're of course going to be using an iFixit kit. If you never use these kits, I'll link it below. They're definitely worth the asking price. So I'm going to start reassembling things. We're going to put the epoxy grills back inside of it, put the drivers back inside of it, and then put the pads on, screw everything together, and we'll pretty much be just about done. I'm curious how this thing is gonna look. So with these things, there's actually a surprising amount of nuance. Like there's tiny little notches in here that you wouldn't really think to catch, but you have to account for them in the mold for it to really fit correctly. And if anything is even slightly off spec, especially on the exterior, it just doesn't work that well. It won't fit, especially if it's bigger, and you kind of have to sand it down a little bit. All right, so this one's a pretty good fit. One thing that you'll notice about the Arya pads and like the Ananda pads is that this actually sits flush on the outside and kind of presses through a little bit. Another thing to note is that if you got the skills for it, or if you have a laser cutter or something, you could make a custom style grill. It doesn't have to be the bars, but that was just the easiest for us to do here at the studio. Now that's seated in there pretty well. All right, so I've just separated these, the 2 ear cups, just so it's a little easier to work on, and then put it on there so it wasn't gonna be scratching against it. So first, I wanna attach this 3.5 millimeter input to this driver. It's kind of just a pressure fit inside there. And then we're gonna have to get this into the hole on the very edge of this headphone. Try not to crunch anything. Just taking special care to make sure that none of the cables are tied up. The clearances for everything. Okay, so it looks like this is pretty much in, but we just need to press it and avoid all these screws. And it's just kind of sort of a tight fit. It's not supposed to rattle around in there at all. So this, I don't know if this is carbon or what this is. Kind of looks like carbon. So this carbon piece needs to be pressure fit inside of this plastic piece, just like that. And then this all needs to gently go inside this. All right, so I actually had to flip the 3.5 millimeter input around. So I didn't do that on camera because I just flipped it around and put it back in the way it's supposed to go. Then it's pressure fit in there. Then this needs to go through here. And then this should just kind of gently press into place. I would qualify this as like firm pressure, like just firm finger pressure. So I think our grills are slightly thicker than the stock ones. So I'm just gonna have to kind of press this and screw it in lightly and then just kind of do the star pattern just to make sure that it fits really well. This is kind of sketchy. These screws are magnetic and they will go through that driver if you're not careful. So handle it one at a time and be cautious. And I'm just, this first round is just gonna be enough to get all the screws in the right place. And then I'm gonna go around with my finger and kind of press this into place. And then the whole thing should seat relatively stiffly, but if it doesn't feel like it's fitting correctly, then we'll kind of reassess and go from there. But it already kind of looks like it's going in correctly. Right, these ones are kind of sketch because my fingers have a hard time getting in there. Before I move on to the other side and really tighten these down and put the final screws in, I'm just gonna plug this thing in, make sure it still works, just to get a little bit of audio out of it. And then once I know it works, I'll move on. So I had a slight panic mode because I grabbed the wrong cable. So wasn't playing. So hopefully this should work. Oh yeah, we're in business. All right, so I'm not gonna make the same mistake. I'm gonna route this so that the cables come out of the back underneath this foam. I may have just ruined this project. My fat finger slipped in there. Technically, I don't think that should affect the sound because it doesn't look like there's a hole through it, but we'll know for sure in a little bit. All right, everything feels like it's pretty much fit in there. The only problem is this cable right here needs to be routed out of the way again, like the other one did. All right, and then this one is even less tolerant than the last one, so we're gonna have to kind of take this slow and go kind of around just like last time, but I'm gonna apply pressure when I do it. It seats okay, but you can just tell that there's like a little bit of pressure where there's not supposed to be pressure. All right, so we're mostly back together and it does work, but we'll screw it in and I'll put pads on it and see if it sounds any good. I think I'm gonna go with the velour. These seem the most comfortable. I'm gonna try these out. They should fit well. Everything seemed to screw together fairly nicely. So let's go ahead and see what we can get out of this thing. And if you need to know how soft these things are, look at that return. That's so nice. Oh yeah. All right, these things are on. Okay, so here is close to what the final look is gonna be like. We might remake these and kind of polish them up or maybe make a slightly different design and just get them looking like super pristine. But these things look pretty sick right now. I'm very happy with this. So I'm gonna plug these in, won't be able to play it. But for real, I did know this was fragile. I just wasn't as careful as I should have been. You should definitely be careful if you decide to mod your headphones, especially if there's something like a planar magnetic. Yeah, it broke. It does like produce sound, but on hard bass hits, you get a lot of driver crinkling, and it's audible, and it's a problem. So it is broken, and that's just an unfortunate thing that I'm going to have to pay to get fixed. But I do think it serves as a good learning opportunity, especially if you didn't know how sensitive these drivers can really be. Sorry for the dog running around.